So I spoke to a client recently who completed her studies and she's now eligible to apply as a motor mechanic. She told me that her previous representative had actually told her to study this course because when she graduates, she'll be eligible to apply for the 189 and the 190 in Victoria. Now, I do have some issues with this advice, so let me talk about it. First of all, yes, I do agree that if you complete these studies, you can be eligible to apply for a 189 and 190 in Victoria. Now, in the last financial year for the 189 visa, yeah, I agree, there are a few motor mechanics that were invited to apply. But over the last couple of years, it hasn't been that consistent for motor mechanics in the 189 visa. And as for the 190 visa in Victoria, yeah, you can apply. But Victoria has always mentioned that they prefer certain candidates, certain skill levels. So I feel it's a little bit different when me and my team provide this advice. Sometimes it's not what you always want to hear, but it is realistic. I believe in providing the advice, but it also has to be realistic. Because in this case, the applicant said, but my agent told me that I was eligible for the 190 in Victoria. And technically, yes. But if you look at all the previous invitation rounds and the data that you have on hand, you don't really see many motor mechanics being invited for the 190 visa in Victoria specifically. Now, don't get me wrong, there's definitely chances for the 190 visa for motor mechanics in other states, such as New South Wales or South Australia. I guess when we train our team, we don't only just look at who's eligible to apply. For example, if you're an accountant, you can apply for the 189 visa. There's nothing wrong with that. But as I teach my team, you have to see what's actually more realistic. Provide the most realistic strategy to clients. We had a client who came to Australia and lodged a protection visa. She had been in Australia for like the past 5 or 6 years on a bridging visa A. She was invited to apply for the 190 visa in Western Australia. But let's talk about how we're able to turn that around. For those who have lodged protection visas in Australia, the criteria is super high. It really isn't easy to get a grant for that visa. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of valid claims for protection visas here in Australia. Our client had completed a diploma of nursing in Western Australia and was working as an enrolled nurse. She came to me and she's like, I don't know what to do. My protection visa has been refused and we're waiting at the AAT. I looked at her application and I realized she was an enrolled nurse and had graduated from Western Australia. We lodged an expression of interest to be invited for the 190 visa in WA, and she was invited like a couple weeks after. She was then finally nominated a couple of months after. Now, she did have a protection visa refused onshore, so she was Section 48 barred. However, to apply for the 190 visa, you are exempt from the Section 48 bar. So we were able to lodge it for her onshore. I'm going to try and summarize all the state requirements in the next 60 seconds, so listen up. Western Australia have already had a couple of invitation rounds and they are inviting people onshore, offshore and interstate. However, they are prioritising applicants who are living onshore in Western Australia. For the 190 visa invite, you will need to have a job offer in your nominated occupation unless you are a graduate. For South Australia, you will need to be living there for at least 12 months to be invited and working in your nominated occupation for the past 6 months. They are open for offshore for some occupations, and if you're highly skilled and talented, you can apply if you're interstate or overseas. For Victoria, you have to be living in Victoria or offshore. To be eligible in Victoria, you must be living onshore in Victoria or offshore. They have already had a couple of invitation rounds and there's a strong focus on healthcare occupations again. For the ACT, you have to be living onshore or offshore in the ACT. And to be invited, you have to meet the minimum matrix cutoff point, so you need to check that out. Queensland have had one invitation round and they have 3 different streams, the graduate stream, working in Queensland stream and the offshore stream. For New South Wales, you must be living in New South Wales or living offshore, and they are following the same occupation list as the Department of Home Affairs. And NT isn't open. This is really important if you, your family member or your friends hold a tourist visa to Australia. I had a client who was stopped at border security, questioned and had a tourist visa cancelled on the spot. When you're granted a tourist visa to Australia, sometimes it is multiple entries and valid for at least 12 months. But the maximum stay each time is only 3 months. So a lot of people come for 3 months, then leave and then come back to Australia a couple days later. So my client was traveling to Australia to see her boyfriend. She'd come to Australia for 3 months, leave, go to Fiji for a couple of days, then come back to Australia for 3 months, leave and then go to Fiji for a couple of days. On her 3rd time coming back to Australia, she was stopped by border security and questioned about what she was doing here in Australia. They ended up taking her phone and going through her phone. Her boyfriend ran a business in Australia, and unfortunately on her phone she had lots of communications with vendors and suppliers. It looked like she was helping her boyfriend take orders for their retail store. So obviously it looked like she was working in Australia and breaching her tourist visa conditions. You're not allowed to work on the tourist visa. They cancelled her visa on the spot. She was deported back to her home country, and unfortunately she has a 3-year ban from applying for another visa to Australia.